All right, let's jump right in. We're going to break down the Tata Consultancy Services 2025 annual report. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. An annual report? Seriously? But stick with me here because this is way more than just numbers. It's a really fascinating story about how a giant global company is trying to balance a purpose that's over a century old with the absolute chaos of today's world. So, let's get into it. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with this one quote from the founder, Jamsetji Tata. This isn't just some nice-sounding platitude they hang on a wall. This idea is their North Star. It genuinely shapes their entire strategy, from how they make money to the huge bets they're placing on technology. This is kind of the key to understanding everything else we're about to cover. So before we can really get what TCS is doing in 2025, we have to go back, way back. This isn't some startup that just popped up. It's a company that's been guided by a core philosophy that's been baked in for over 100 years. And that leads us to the big question, right? How does a company that's built on these deep historical values not just survive, but actually thrive in a world that's constantly being hit with disruption, geopolitical drama, and insane technological shifts? It's that classic story. Old school purpose meets brand new problems. Okay, now let's talk about the challenges. Every good story needs some conflict, and well, the world definitely served up a ton of it for TCS this past year. Yeah, the chairman did not pull any punches. He flat out called it a year of profound global disruption. And he's not exaggerating. We're talking about major geopolitical conflicts, really shaky and uncertain trade situations, and get this, elections in over 60 countries that put a pause on policymaking. It was a chaotic environment for pretty much any business on the planet. So the million-dollar question, or in this case, billion-dollar question, is how did they actually handle all that turbulence? An annual report is all about accountability, right? So let's look at the hard evidence. First up, revenue. They hit $30 billion US dollars. In a year where a lot of companies were just trying to tread water, posting a number that big, well, that's your first major sign of resilience. Next, you've got their operating margin, 24.3%. Now, this number basically tells you how profitable and efficient they are. The report calls it industry-leading, which is their way of saying that even with all the chaos going on, their business was running like a well-oiled machine. It shows incredible financial discipline. And finally, here's a look into the future. They booked $39.4 billion in what's called total contract value. Just think of that as the total price tag of all the new deals they signed this year. A number that high is a massive vote of confidence from their clients. It shows they're trusted for the long haul, and it locks in a really strong pipeline of work. So they've clearly proven they can weather a storm. But just surviving isn't the game, right? Growth is. And that brings us to their next big move, their huge strategic pivot. So how is TCS planning for what's next? The answer is loud and clear. They are betting big on artificial intelligence. But look, they're not just chasing the latest AI hype. They've actually defined their own approach, and they call it purposeful AI. Pay attention to the wording here. Infusing AI with human ingenuity. This isn't about AI replacing people, it's about AI making people better. See what they did there? It's a direct line from their futuristic tech strategy right back to their original human-first mission. And this isn't just a vague idea. They lay out a super clear 4-step game plan. They're creating AI agents to work with their employees, shifting to a model where humans and AI deliver solutions together, building out the heavy-duty infrastructure needed, and teaming up with a whole ecosystem of partners. It's a complete top-to-bottom strategy. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're investing in very specific things, like using AI to build and run software from the ground up, modernizing old applications to be AI native, and even using AI to completely reimagine how entire industries work. The bottom line is, they're weaving AI into every single thing they do. Okay, so we've seen the solid financials, we've seen the big AI strategy. But does it actually work? What does all of this look like in the real world? Let's look at the tangible results. This is so telling. Take a look at their biggest clients. The number of companies paying them over $100 million a year jumped from 48 to 64 in 1 year. That tells you they're not just selling a service, they're becoming absolutely critical partners to some of the world's biggest companies. That's a direct result of their strategy paying off. And you can see that growing trust reflected right here in their brand value. It's just been on a steady climb, and it's now over $21 billion. To put that in perspective, The report says this makes TCS only the second global IT services brand ever to cross that $20 billion mark. Reputation is everything, and this chart shows you they've earned it. And that trust is built on a solid foundation of good governance. Now, this might look like a simple chart, but it's incredibly important. Nearly 2/3 of their board of directors are independent. For investors, for clients, for everyone, that is a powerful signal that there is real accountability and transparency at the very top.
Which brings us right back to where we started. We've seen the profit, the strategy, the brand. But let's check back in on that powerful quote from Jamsetji Tata. With all this success, how did they do on what he called the very purpose of its existence, the community?
Well, the report gives us some really compelling answers. A global CSR spend of over 1,000 crore rupees, reaching almost 15 million people. And get this, nearly 9 million hours of employee volunteering. Then there's the environmental impact, an 84% cut in their direct carbon footprint since 2016, and they're now running on nearly 80% renewable energy. This is where that idea of purpose stops being talk and becomes real, measurable action.
So let's pull all of this together. If you're going to remember one thing from this entire story, what should it be? When you boil it all down, the story of TCS in 2025 is a masterclass in juggling three huge critical forces. You have this deep, enduring purpose that puts the community first, you have incredibly resilient profit that holds up even in crazy times, and you have a sharp strategic pivot to AI to own the future. It's the way these three things connect and feed off each other that tells the whole story. And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought. TCS is betting it can build its purpose right into its technology. So, as AI continues to completely reshape our world, their story makes you wonder. Is it possible that huge, profitable corporations could actually be the most powerful force for ensuring this new technology is used for good? Definitely something to think about.